You are listening to the Better 2 podcast with M.Needom. Hi, gang. Donna here. Thanks for tuning into the Better 2 podcast. Today's guest is Anthony and Staci Lo Cascio. They wrote a book called Food as a Prescription because they decided at a certain point as they were aging that they needed to change their diet, which meant going gluten-free, soy-free, and corn-free because their bodies were telling them, hey, something's not right here. And being tap dancers and dance teachers, they had to make these changes if they wanted to succeed in their career. So there's a lot of good information here. We also talk about dance, we talk about reality TV, and well, you know, as always, the show just takes on a whole path of its own. So enjoy. This episode of the Better 2 podcast is brought to you by Kitty Mystic and M.Needom, author of My Days with the Dark Muse, as well as Love is Worth Waiting For. In the beginning, applause was his drug of choice. He felt so loved that he couldn't help but sample the buffet of women that were presented. It didn't matter that he had a wife or a daughter. His addictions became his life. When death came knocking, reality came crashing in. He thought he wanted a new reality, but did he really? My Days with the Dark Muse by M.Needom, available at online booksellers. Hi, Anthony and Staci. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Thank you. How are you?
I'm good, except we're all, as we were saying offline, we're all complaining about the lovely time change. You know, it's one of those things.
Well, it definitely affects you. It's an adjustment.
Yeah, I don't know. I live in farm community. Guess what? All the combines and everything have lights, and they're out in the fields at 10 o'clock at night. So we don't need to worry about them. Of course, now they say it's about energy. So who knows? Anyway, so you guys are both tap dancers.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
So whoever wants to take the lead on this, because both of you need to answer the question, how did you get your start? Were you a kid and you just saw a tap dancer, you saw Gene Kelly or something, or what happened?
I basically came out of the womb dancing. I started officially in real classes when I was like 2.5 at a local YMCA. And I did, tap, ballet, creative movement, and then you progress a little bit. And the studio that I went to after just that little session, when I turned 3, we did tap, jazz, ballet, acrobatics. And when we did jazz, we did all the styles of jazz. So musical theater wasn't a separate class. It was you learned it all in the jazz class. Same with ballet, you learn the different styles of ballet and all of those kinds of things. And yeah, I just never stopped.
Awesome.
Apparently I had very good rhythm when I was a kid, and I would bounce around to the music. My father taught me how to clap on beat.
Okay.
From there, I went to dance class and absolutely hated it because I was the only boy. They didn't know what to do with me. And it just wasn't I wasn't bonding with it yet. A couple of years later, my cousin was going to a dance studio. My cousin Jennifer was going to a dance studio called Joe Stanford Dance Studio. And I was about 9 years old, 8 or 9 years old. I went there for classes to go hang out. She was babysitting. I went there to go hang out. I liked it. The teacher was a male. So he saw a boy, and right away, we want to get the boy in class because you don't get a lot of boy dance, especially in the mid to late 70s.
Yeah.
And I started class shortly after. He approached my mom and said, listen, Anthony's doing really well. I think he'd do really good in tap class. Would you be okay with him taking tap as well? And she said, as long as he wants to. And I was like, yeah, I want to. So I started tap dancing at 9 years old, and I'm 49 now. And this is, it's been a journey. I've been tap dancing for 40 years.
Yeah.
Hey, that says a lot. And how are your knees doing?
My knees are pretty good.
Yeah.
My knees are pretty good.
It's the hips and the back.
It's the hips and the back that are like, hey, man, I need a break.
Yeah.
Yeah. I used to take dance classes a long time ago, but not to the level you guys did. My mom was 1 year shy of her dance degree when she married my dad. And there was always, I guess, a competitive rivalry after that. It's like she would tell me, you don't have any rhythm. And I'm like, okay, but I play bass. And I've taken classes as a grown up and they're like, you have natural rhythm. So I think it was just a competitive thing that, you can't follow what I wanted to do. But I love dancing. I think it's awesome. But yeah, my body now, it's like, no, you're not doing that. Because I would be the girl at the nightclub getting up on the speaker to dance by herself. So
nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, we don't do a lot of tap dance nightclub speakering in dance class, but
No, but you know what I'm getting at. It's like your world is your stage. So you get up there and you do it.
That's right.
And you have fun. So you, Anthony, did tap dogs?
I am the first American to get a standing role in the show Tap Dogs that originated in Australia and was choreographed by Mr. Dean Perry. Yes, nice. I did do Tap Dogs, and it was a very, very good time. And I could tell you any kind of stories you want to know from that show, but being on stage every night was quite incredible. I started with 8 shows a week. I don't think we ever did that show in the 17 years I did it where we didn't get a standing ovation. We worked very hard for an hour and 25 minutes or whatever it was. And it was basically having a tap dance party on stage with your friends every night. And it was awesome.
Nice. I know Nigel Lithgow when So You Think You Can Dance was on. I don't know if you ever watched that. But
I'm familiar with the show. I've had some friends that have choreographed on it and all that kind of deal.
He used to talk. I mean, his pride of dancers was always the tappers, and there was a lot of tappers
because they didn't really show the tap dancers the kind of love that you would think they would show. Being that Nigel had that love for tap dance, they made them dance on the same surfaces as everybody else, which blows my mind because tap really should be on wood or a surface that resonates. Yeah. And not to be like stuck up about it, but there's some surfaces that absorb sound, and you shouldn't really be tap dancing on surfaces that absorb sound. Yeah. Aside from that, they made all the other dancers they made the tap dancers do all the other styles. It was always interesting to me how the other dancers didn't have to tap dance. No. Just once something happened that Anthony Morgerato helped make happen. I was very proud of that young lady for stepping up and tap dancing. And they never made them all do ballet.
No.
And I think it's because they're two of the most technical styles of dance that were presented on the show in some way or another. So it was interesting.
It's kind of like contemporary. It's funny because when I was in college and I was dancing, I would go find a room in the school to go dance and everything. And now I look back, it's like, oh, that was contemporary. I wasn't even realizing I was doing contemporary. But what is contemporary? It's a bunch of different styles thrown in together with a little ballet and but it's not anything. And I know that some dancers are going to scream at me, and I'm not trying to be negative. I'm just saying it's a lot of different styles together.
It is.
So,
it's hard to define because it's not definable.
It's more of a timing thing than a style thing too.
I mean, I don't know. It used to be considered modern, a portion of modern, and then I think it broke away enough, and it used to be considered part of ballet, and it broke away enough from both of those styles and kind of fused together. I think, instead of contemporary ballet, which there still exists, now it's more like a fusion of ballet and jazz and modern all together.
And a little tumbling.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Acro.
If you're certain people.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Sesame Street Live, Staci.
Yeah. So during high school, during my senior year of high school, I grew up in Kansas City, so it was a 4-season climate. And in February of that year, I was supposed to drive down to Texas and audition for the Power Rangers TV show. And there happened to be a snowstorm that weekend, so I didn't go to Texas. I stayed in Kansas City, and there was an audition for Sesame Street Live, so I went to that instead. And then I left the day after graduation to go do 42nd Street in Pennsylvania. And while I was there, Sesame Street Live called and they said, we need you for 10 months starting in August. And I went, okay, I'll be home for about 2 weeks and then gotcha. So I left in August after my senior year of graduating high school, and I was gone for 10 months. I mean, we came home for 1 week at Christmas. But yeah, other than that, I was gone for 10 months at 18, which was great. I mean, I loved it because At the time, it was an equity contract. It was one of the lower tiered equity contracts, but it was an easy way to get your equity card. I guess easy. Looking back on it, it was easy, but it was a very hard show.
Yeah.
It was very hard, energy wise. Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot, and I'm very thankful for the years that I spent doing that show. Yeah.
So after your two, Tap Dogs and Sesame Street Live, what did you guys focus on after that?
I moved to Chicago after that. And I kind of didn't really dance a whole lot. It was one of those things where a lot of the professional classes were during the day, and I had taken an office job, so I couldn't really go to class and work in the office that I was working in. I finally eventually made my way back to teaching in the evenings and stuff, but it was a couple of years that I didn't really dance in that way. I dance for myself here and there, but nothing like a regular regimen. And then once I got back to teaching regularly, then I started doing community theater and other shows and things like that. And then I moved to New York about 6.5 years ago, after being in Chicago for about 14 years. So,
And what are you doing in New York?
I mean, we have a tap company called Tap Life, and we wrote a book called Food as a Prescription. We came to that book, well, when I was in Chicago, I got my massage license as well, and a personal trainer's license as well. I did that too.
Okay.
But I realized I'm not a salesperson, and that was a lot of that job. And so even though I wanted to help people get fit and all of those things, it just wasn't the right job for that particular avenue for me personally. So I ended up with some weird autoimmune symptoms, and sort of came about changing my food, changing my diet, and the things that I was exposed to environmentally while I was in Chicago. And I just happened to move to New York, and I had met Anthony a little bit prior to that. And then we kind of bonded over both dance and food and things like that. So I'll let him tell his story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There wasn't really an after Tap Dogs for like 17 years because
There was an in between.
yeah, there was always in betweens. Once I did that show, it was really a lot of fun, and it was intense, and it wasn't an easy show to do, and it was very interesting. And I got to go to all 50 states and a couple of countries from being involved with Tap Dogs. But I think towards in the middle of all that, I wound up being a convention teacher. I taught at a lot of dance conventions, which I thoroughly enjoy. I also was teaching in a lot of dance studios, and it was back and forth. It was okay, I'm home for a couple of months, I'm teaching. I'm go back on the road, I'm doing Tap Dogs again. So that was that for many, many years. At the end of that, my final run with Tap Dogs was, I think, is 2013. And then I really focused on the teaching. And it was teaching for many years, from 2013 until now. And in the past 3 years, the whole idea that my body was changing, I was sick, or something's going on, and I needed a solution, started really becoming a lot more heated up, and something the universe said I had to address. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to dance anymore. And I was going to be dealing with some serious health issues. So my journey really moved towards food. I've always been in New York, so I moved back to New York about 7 years ago, and I've been here ever since. And now the next plan is to wind up in Florida in about a year from now.
Wow.
Continuing through the journey, which I'm no spoilers. I won't tell you what comes next. You can ask the question and then I'll give you the information.
I'm just like, that's a big change. I mean, you have winter there, and in Florida, well, as my friend says, if it gets down to 50, well, it's, depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
So are you?
He lived in California for about 17 years while he was touring with Tap Dogs.
I think she was referencing where we're going next.
Yeah. Well, that's what she's saying. The weather in New York is so different from Florida. Yeah.
I grew up in Louisiana. I grew up in New Orleans, and I live in Chicago.
Yeah.
So, and I've been here 20 something years, and New Orleans is a nice place, but I don't like heat. So I lived in Texas too. So no.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love New York. It was a great place to grow up, but I can't take the smell anymore. I can't take the energy. I just and I can't take the winter.
Yeah.
I don't want snow anymore. My favorite thing about California was living in the sun and then driving to Tahoe if I wanted to be involved in snow. And then when I didn't want to be involved in snow, driving back to the coast. Yeah.
Understand.
So,
Understand. I mean, when it snows here, if it snows good, and I stay home because like I said, back to the farmer's field. You know,
Yeah.
I live in the burbs, so I have to drive across farm country, and that blowing snow, I don't care how many times you clear the road, it's coming back on the road. So
Yeah.
if I don't have to be somewhere, I'm just saying. So I get it. I get it.
Fair enough.
You know, snow is a factor. And let's be honest, as you age, your body doesn't necessarily like it either.
Yeah.
Plus, if you fall down, that's even worse.
Yes.
Sure, you're brittle. You're cold and brittle. Snap something. Snap
Yep.
it.
And it's not a Slim Jim.
No.
No.
No, it's a
Not
fever.
exactly. So you said if I asked the question, so what are your plans when you move to Florida?
Ah, we are working on 100% gluten-free, soy-free, corn-free, and sometimes dairy-free bakery.
Okay.
So we'd like to open up a bakery. We travel a lot during the summer. We get in our car and we drive across the country and teach tap classes. And in the years that we were doing that, especially in the last 2 or 3, we've been visiting bakeries all over the country. Some of them are dedicated, some of them are not dedicated, a few of them are delicious, but a lot of them could do better. And it's interesting to see how many people are just so happy to just have a baked good, even if it's not delicious. And I'm Italian. And if I'm going to eat this way, it better be delicious. I grew up in a kitchen. Like, I can't do this if it's not delicious. So basically, we're going to open a bakery and have a companion cookbook with baked goods and other stuff in it called All We Do Is Delicious.
Nice. And that's the thing about gluten-free, because you know, it's gotten better. It has gotten better over the years, but there was a time when gluten-free was like cardboard.
Oh yeah,
It was just almond flour. That was it.
Yeah, it still could be if you're not reading what's actually in it. When we walk into a bakery, and we usually say, "Oh, what kind of flour do you use?" And if they say, "Oh, we use almond flour," right away we're like, "Uh-oh,
okay,
this is going to be heavy. It's going to be dense. It's going to be heavy. It's not going to be cakey." But sometimes they're like, "We use rice flour and no binders." Okay, well now that's just going to fall apart the second you take a bite out. It's going to. So it's a tricky thing, but we're dedicated and we're practicing different things and we're coming up with so many delicious items.
Awesome.
So it's a very exciting time it's an exciting time to be alive.
my husband, I will say, he was a champion. He was great at making gluten-free things. And I wanted to try Yorkshire pudding, and most people don't know it's not pudding, it's a baked good that you eat with a meal, kind of like a bread, but it's not really a bread. And he actually made some gluten-free first time. It was interesting, it was different, but I wanted to try it, and he's like, I'll make it for you. But he was willing. I mean, Pioneer Woman had a bunch of gluten-free recipes, and he was always thrilled when he's like, I got a good recipe. All right, let's go. So I think making the cookbook for those that can't get to your bakery is an awesome idea. My stepmom, because I'm from New Orleans, she sent me a gluten-free king cake once.
Oh, wow.
And that was pretty awesome. And it was actually really tasty. So, yeah, I mean, I applaud you for doing this because there is a demand.
Well, one of the things that we do in the Food as a Prescription book is we offer a couple of recipes at the end of the book. And we tell people what our flour mix is so they can have more success at home. Part of the whole deal is if you have to change your diet, if you don't have a successful guide, then you kind of fail before you start. You may not be in the right mindset. You may not have good recipes, and it becomes discouraging. But if you have good tools at your side, you could be very successful and you could be empowered. And we do let's see, there's a pancake recipe in there. There's a delicious mustard vinaigrette in there. There's a chocolate chip cookie recipe. And people are like, oh yeah, gluten-free, soy-free, corn-free. What are they made of, air? I was like, I'll tell you what, taste the cookie. And then they take a bite and they're like, whoa, this is delicious. How'd you do that? I'm like,
It's magic.
You work hard.
It is. It's a lot of trial and error.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. If you don't have the means, meaning the bread, literally the cash, to do trial and error, it could be very expensive. And then it seems like a very daunting task. It's very discouraging. But if someone gives you the inside information, it's great. It's like magic tricks. If you don't know how the magic trick works, it's like, whoa. But if you know how the magic trick works, you're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I want to tell everybody because it's life-changing.
Yeah.
That's part of the deal. If you could help somebody, show them how they have the power to change their own life and be successful at it, it's empowering.
And that's something I want to say. It's kind of sad that, if you want to eat healthy in this country, it's going to cost you.
Mm-hmm.
The flour is ridiculously priced sometimes. I mean, I use a lot of oat flour to try to make things a little bit better, but it's just costly. But if you want a bag of cheap old white flour, go ahead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that's the system we're in. That's part of the issue. That's part of the system we're in. I mean, it's like you go to, not that I would ever go to McDonald's, but I remember a long time ago, they started adding salads. And it was very interesting because the salads, which are just lettuce and a little bit of, were more expensive than the burgers.
Yeah.
And it was like, how does that happen? How could you charge that? Supply and demand, I guess. I don't know, but it's odd. It's odd to me.
Well, maybe because there's more waste, because if they have to waste it,
whatever it is, the system is not set up for us to know a lot about nutrition
No.
and how nutrition affects our bodies, and that every body is its own body and needs its own type of attention and care. It's not the system we're in. And it's amazing because when you talk to people that are all in this kind of mindset, they have that kind of feeling about life, and they usually sound good, feel good, have a good spirituality about themselves, look healthy, like taking care of themselves, live long lives. So the proof is in the pudding, even if it's Yorkshire. See how I did that?
I see how you did that. I mean, talking about the gluten-free aspect, a lot of people are like, well, if you don't have celiac disease, you shouldn't go gluten-free. But the truth is, the way our wheat is processed is part of the problem. And I'm not going to get into all the semantics about it because you can do enough research about it. But, the fact that they spray certain killers on the weeds to, we're not supposed to be ingesting this.
Corn, soy.
The ones that
most vegetables.
The ones that seem to have the most processing seem to be the things that the people in mass are having trouble with. It's very interesting. Yeah, I agree. We agree with you.
Well, I mean, here's a story of proof. So my husband was on dialysis and he got off of Prilosec. Firstly, and I shouldn't be saying this, but Prilosec did have a lawsuit. And it says now they really specifically say 21 days. However, his doctors kept saying, just stay on it. So he was on it for years.
Oh.
So he stopped taking that. And we went gluten-free. And I mean, I was gluten-free before, but he went gluten-free and his kidney function came back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
And as he started buying bread again and getting back to bread, his kidney function went away.
Yeah.
Well, gluten's an inflammatory.
Yeah.
It locks things up. I had a finger that wasn't working. And I was like, I guess I'm just getting old. I guess my body parts don't work anymore.
Well, your grandma had something like that too, right? So
correct.
You thought you were just like her.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just thought that was it. And then I had cut out the gluten. They work fine now. Crazy.
But amazing. I mean, part of our health is hereditary. I get that. But if our grandparents were starting to eat the processed food like we did, then they're building up the toxins just like we did. And
that's right.
This is where all the problems lie.
Yeah. So
you have to try to get healthy.
Yes. Yes.
My voice was going. So let's go back to dancing for a second.
Sure.
I'm just curious. So who did you admire as a tap dancer?
Me? My favorite is Sammy Davis Jr.
Okay.
And then a very close second, probably tied for first, would be Gregory Hines.
Okay.
And of course, I love Gene Kelly, and I know about these other artists like Fred Astaire and stuff like that. But it was always when there was like a Kennedy Center's Award honors thing on or something like that, that I was really just glued to the television, which usually presented some of the master tap dancers that existed at the time. But Sammy Davis Jr. and Gregory Hines are definitely two of the most influential people that made me want to tap dance. I'm old enough to have remembered variety shows on television.
Yeah.
It used to be variety shows, and it wasn't about which person did the best and what kind of drama the judges could talk about and everybody at home voting. It was about, this is what good talent looks like, sounds like, acts like, and that's what we're going to present to you. And that
It's entertaining.
It was
Mhm.
entertaining. It kept America's attention. But as time went on, things changed. Variety shows went away. When they came back in the form of like Star Search,
Yeah.
and it started becoming voting. And then when it got time to So You Think You Could Dance, that's when it really became way too much for me, because you're comparing different styles of dance to each other. And I think depending on who's on the judging panel, depends on which styles of dance get highlighted. So it became a little bit nonsensical to me.
Well, and then some of the people that were on the judging panel really didn't have the background to even be on the judging panel.
That happens as well.
But if you think about it, I mean, the general public who's watching the TV show may or may not also have the background to judge, but yet that's what they're supposed to do, is judge. Is this entertaining to me?
Okay, got it.
Yeah, like the So You Think You Can Dance one.
Yes.
Well,
Like, is this entertaining to me? Okay, I may not understand the technical aspects of it, but I can tell you whether it's entertaining to me or not. And I get that. Everybody has an opinion, and that's cool. But if that's what we're going to use as a standard to judge, that's, I think maybe what you're saying is like, yeah, I don't know about the judging part of that.
But
You can offer your opinion, but that's where it needs to end.
but then back this up, you have people that aren't even judging it for entertainment. You have the fangirls that are sitting there going,
Yeah.
oh, he's so cute.
Yes, there's a lot of that.
Then-
Yeah. And that happened on American Idol too, and all of those other, any contest show. I mean, there's so much of that.
I think Staci and I went to a show one night. We were at a live show, and it was kind of okay. It wasn't great,
Yeah.
which is okay. You know, not everything has to be the best in the world, and we enjoyed it. But at the end of the show, all the people jumped up on their feet and gave a round of a standing ovation. And we looked at each other like, why are these people
What did we
standing
miss?
up and clapping? Why
What did we miss?
It's because they think that's just what they're supposed to
to
do.
Yeah.
They think they're supposed to stand up and clap at the end. And we were like, wow, we've gotten to the point where people, everyday people, just don't know the difference between what's good and what's not good, which makes it super hard for the people who are really good at these things to make a living now. Because it's not about if you're good or bad. It's about how you present yourself and
how many followers you
can
have,
you be the best person in the popularity contest.
Right.
So that popularity contest from high school has now creeped into society in a way that it's drastically watered down people's ability to recognize quality talent or not.
TikTok.
Yeah.
Need you say any more than TikTok, Instagram, anything like that? We're and the thing is, it keeps bleeding. We moved TikTok. We had TikTok. So now Instagram's like, oh, I have to keep up with this. So we're going to put reels in, and
Reels,
wait,
right, sure.
YouTube's now we got to do shorts. So
Right.
So where does
well, it's not, it's
you gotta
easy.
keep everyone's attention.
Just got to grab the thing someone else did and make it yours. And yes, it's challenging. It's challenging.
It's Andy Warhol. Everybody will be famous for 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I do say that, you could use these things for the power of good if that's how you choose to use them, and that's how you choose to be engaged with them. But I will tell you, being a dance teacher, I now talk about Tourette's talk. Because you're in the middle of a conversation with a child, and all of a sudden they go, and I'm like, and then they look at you again. I'm like, what just happened? What do you even know what just happened?
Did you fade out of reality?
Did you for a second bounce out, and they do a TikTok move? Well, and I'm like, well, I was in the middle of they don't even know that they're doing it. It's like, and I have to say, I stand there and tap dance sometimes, and I don't even know I'm doing it, but it's gotten to the point where these things have become so just ingrained in them, and the thing that's what they're so familiar to, they're in the middle of a conversation, and boom, they're out, and they do a TikTok move, and boom, they're back, and you're like, what just happened? I call it Tourette's talk. Yeah.
Or they jump out of their car and dance, and the car keeps rolling.
Yeah, I know. I've seen that. Those are trends and stuff like that. Yeah,
it's like, as coming from a former insurance adjuster, I'm like mortified because it's like, how do you explain that one? Here's the thing: it's an intentional act. You intentionally got out of the car, therefore your claim will be denied.
Yeah, exactly.
Oops. I mean. I think, going back to the variety show, Carol Burnett, Bob Hope, we had all those fun things that
Sonny and Cher, the Jacksons had a show,
Donnie and Marie. I mean,
I came in on the tail end, like around hee haw time.
Okay. Captain and Tennille.
Yeah, man, I'm just, she's laughing because I listened to Captain. I listened to Love. Love will keep us together. Yeah.
And tonight Joe is performing for us. And the natural performer.
Oh, the Smothers Brothers had a TV show.
Yeah. Saturday mornings.
Yeah.
I mean, the Hudson brothers had the Saturday morning show. So it was just, we had entertainment in a different capacity. And I do think the judging thing is not always good. I had a guest on here who was a season runner-up on The Voice. Now, the only reality show that I really watched is So You Think You Can Dance, because I did enjoy the dance numbers. The whole other stuff was just kind of
the drama.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of why
drama.
Yeah, that's kind of why I got my hubby and I used to watch Dancing with the Stars for the first couple of seasons, and that was just kind of like, okay. But he's like, I was told by my coach, you don't want to win this contest, because if you win this contest, you're gonna be locked into a contract. They may not promote you, and they own you. Yeah. Yes. So it's like you go in these people that go in the contest think, okay, I'm gonna hit it big. I'm gonna be somebody by doing this.
Yeah, you're definitely better off not winning, because there's so many more opportunities out there.
Yeah. There's actually a girl, I was watching Roswell, New Mexico, and I'm like, I know her. Where do I know her from? She was on So You Think You Can Dance. I think she was actually one of the winners, or came in a good place, and was just kind of like, oh yeah. So, I mean, there are opportunities if you're not the winner to get your name out there. Yeah. But is it worth it? Is it worth being belittled, the stress and everything else? Nobody really looks at that.
Honestly, I think the only person who probably came out better is Kelly Clarkson.
Yeah.
And that's because she was the first, and they only had that one. Well,
Carrie Underwood.
She didn't win.
Oh, that's right. She didn't
win.
Carrie Underwood, did she win?
Yes.
Okay. So then that's the two. Other than that,
but like,
I do have high hopes for Cam Anthony. I loved him. He was great on The Voice.
Yeah.
But in regards to what we're talking about, John Holiday was also on The Voice, and he was amazing.
Yeah.
And he made it into like the top 5 or 6.
5 or 6, yeah.
And he was the first one out of that group. When America voted, I was like, see, America doesn't understand the talent and quality this man possesses, and how hard it is to do what he does, and how unusual and how individual it is, and what an iconic voice he has. And they voted him out right away, and I thought he was gonna win. That's how good he is.
Daughtry was the other one that did well.
Yeah,
I was trying to think.
He came into it with a band, and he ended up with a band, and I mean, I think he's probably the one that was like, no, this is how it's gonna go.
We're talking about all the cast members of all these shows.
Yeah, okay.
This is so funny.
It's fun.
Although I will say one thing. One thing I will say, he didn't win. I'm pretty sure he did. Maybe he did.
I don't think so either.
Adam Lambert. Now he has made a career for himself.
I know his name too.
Yeah. Well,
he's done stuff for Queen. He's been
right.
Yeah. He was on the Find the Next Lead Singer of NXS and all of that stuff.
Was he?
I think so.
I don't think he was on there. There was somebody.
I thought he made some rounds there for a while.
No, because I did watch that because I was a big NXS fan. So I did watch that. Yes, we really are it's like a coffee shop talk. We're digressing to this kind of stuff. I'm sorry if this isn't what you wanted, but it's
who, us or them?
Whoever.
Anyone.
I should just call this coffee talk, but I don't drink coffee, so there you go. But anyway.
Tea talk.
Tea talk, yes, or kombucha. Which
Fair
is
enough.
tea anyway. So how long has your book been out as Food as a Prescription?
Oh, how long is the book? April 21st, 2021 was the release date.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's been out for a couple of months now. Yeah.
And how was it releasing it during the, that P word that nobody likes to talk about, the pandemic?
Was there a pandemic?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. The last couple of years have kind of been just a blur. So
right. It was interesting because people always told me I should write a book because I have a lot of stories. I mean, I've opened up a Stevie Wonder, Natalie Cole, Earth, Wind and Fire, performed all the different places, blah, 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 blah. And it was, yes, do you want me to come closer?
No, you should tell us more about this too.
For a summer, I entertained in Monte Carlo at the Monte Carlo Sporting Club. And I opened up for those artists and spent 2 months dancing on the French Riviera.
Nice.
Yes.
And
So
I'm sure
it was lovely. It was lovely. What was I talking about?
we were talking about the launch of your book. We can go back to the Riviera
No, right.
in a minute.
How the last 2 years have affected.
Right. So someone
our-
said, they said I should write a book because all my experiences with tap dogs and doing those things. I was on MTV, all those kind of things, right? And I always said, oh yeah, maybe one day I'll write it. But then during the pandemic, Staci and I noticed that while we were home and had more time on our hands, we were in a couple of gluten-free groups on Facebook. And there was a lot of people that had more time on their hands as well. So they were writing questions in there. I just found out I'm gluten-free. What do I do? I have to avoid soy. How do I figure out what soy is? My daughter just was told that she can't have these things anymore. I'm in a panic. And we were writing the same answers to people over and over again. I have to be gluten-free, soy-free. Can I ever go out to dinner again? And we found ourselves starting to compile these answers into like a note. So it was easier for us to answer them. And that note became an outline for the handbook, Food as a Prescription. It's basically a handbook for those currently on or prescribed a gluten-free, soy-free, corn-free, and or dairy-free diet.
I think we tried to write what we would have wanted when we first found out that this is what we had to do with our food or our life or whatever. And we, tried to get in the minds of these people who are, what
do I do now?
I have to go to the grocery store. What do I buy?
What do I do? So,
I can't just buy everything that says gluten-free,
right.
Like all these things.
Basically, a doctor says to them, you have to change your diet, but they don't tell them how.
No.
So how do you expect them to be successful unless you give them a guide?
A roadmap. Yeah.
So we kind of wrote what we think is the first quintessential guide for anyone that needs to use food as a prescription. And that's how it happened.
Now, did a doctor tell both of you that you needed to do it, or you just did it? I mean, no, a doctor did not tell me. I decided that my stepmom was kind of like pushing me toward it.
Well, we were both advised to change our diets because of the health issues we were having.
My first rheumatologist pointed me in the direction of a blood type diet. And that was probably the first thing like that I was prescribed, Yeah. It had come up prior to that, but that was really the first time it was presented to me in a medical fashion. Outside of that, it had been presented as more like you're having a little stomach trouble, okay, do this, or this and that. But this was like a definitive, a doctor.
Yeah.
Do this. And I said, okay. And then that led me further down. And I went to see a nutritionist. And then that's sort of where it branched.
The interesting thing is, for me personally, I've always had inflammatory markers in my blood, high inflammatory markers.
No tomatoes, take the tomatoes out.
I don't really eat tomatoes, so that's a good thing. But for the most part, doctors they're just like, oh, well.
Yeah.
I know.
Because it's so commonplace now. It didn't used to be, but it's so commonplace now.
For myself, I discovered I was internally bleeding.
Wow.
And for 20 years, I couldn't get an answer. And I eventually met Staci, and she suggested trying to change my diet. I took out the gluten and the dairy one summer, and I lost 35 pounds. And the intense kind of bleeding that I was experiencing minimized and sometimes stopped. So when my chiropractor saw me, who's also a nutritionist, saw the transformation I went through, said, you know what, man, I think it's time that we start talking about nutrition. You're obviously trying to help yourself. Let's give you a nutrition response test. And when I took that nutrition response test, it indicated that I shouldn't be eating gluten, soy, or corn. It said I could put dairy back in. And I don't eat a lot of dairy, pretty much just Italian grated cheese.
Yeah.
But that changed everything for me. And then I was able to stop myself from internally bleeding with the diet change and with adding a couple of supplements, which also strengthened my heart and my colon and a couple of other things. So I'm really grateful for that experience.
Yeah, I don't think we take nutrition. It's once again, what we learn in school, we're not taught everything we need to know.
Well, all we're taught about is the food pyramid. We're not taught anything else. We're not taught how.
Go ahead.
It's different for everyone.
We're not taught how it's different for everyone. And like you said, even if, we talk about the celiac and That's the thing associated with gluten-free. At this point, celiac or not, we know that taking gluten out of your life
Cuts
has the
down on
side
your
effect
inflammation.
of
Yeah.
cutting down on inflammation in your body,
Yeah.
which could contribute to arthritis and a list of other things, including to what did you say before? Kidney function.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's the thing. It's like, besides the nutrition, we don't teach about stress. We don't teach about stress management. We
Mhm.
don't teach any of those things.
No, we
And
kind of
then-
enforce a little bit more stress. Here, do
Right.
all this schoolwork.
Well, and talking to people now, I mean, I'll age myself. I'm 54. So when I was in school, we didn't start talking college until we were in high school. And now you have kids in junior high.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
what college are you going to go to? Heck, at 7, when you're in 7th and 8th grade, do you even know what you're going to wear that day, or what's what you want in life? I mean, come on.
Yeah, that's a tall order.
I feel lucky, I guess, because I always knew I was going to dance. I never really thought of anything else, really. But I know I'm not the majority.
No, and here's the thing: your parents most likely supported that. Not every parent is going to support their kid saying, "I want to be a dancer." I mean,
Yeah.
we talked about my mom. She would have looked at me and said, "No."
Yeah.
And it's interesting. One of the arguments that I hear from, or one of the concerns, I shouldn't say arguments, one of the concerns I hear from parents is that, no, my daughter's going to play soccer to get a scholarship in school. And I'm like, well, do you realize that they could also get scholarships to go to college in dance?
Mhm.
I don't think that a lot of parents
No.
realize that. And I don't think that every studio approaches it that way.
Mhm.
When, you have to remember, when someone's bringing their pride and joy into your space, if you don't present it to them as a life choice, at least leading up to college, then how can you expect parents to have the knowledge of what dance can actually do
Or
for their children?
respect what you do for them.
Right.
Well, I mean, and here's the thing. I think one thing that is missed by the general public about dance, you think dance is just, oh, it's just fun. You're just moving around there. No, there's a lot of training and there's a lot of athleticism that goes into dance. Way
And there's
more
a lot
than
of
people.
business.
I say it's a
the back-
discipline.
right.
Yeah.
There's the behind the camera or off the stage roles that dancers could play as well. There is a dancer who I was just talking about this weekend who just choreographed a movie.
Okay.
So there's lots of choreography opportunities. Mandy Moore choreographed that show that we like so much. Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist.
Yeah.
So there are other opportunities where you can make money as a dancer. And I think a lot of parents are just concerned that, well, it's a dead end or there's no future.
Unless you make it on Broadway, you're
Right.
not gonna dance.
But that's just that's the amateur's vision or perspective. If a professional explains it differently, all of a sudden it gives parents a different perspective, which is what our job is as professionals. And maybe dance isn't for everyone.
Well, I mean, when you look at, let's take out the social media aspect of it, but when MTV decided to create music videos, now whether MTV is not showing that anymore,
Interesting, right?
but there's still that industry. I mean, it's still on YouTube. People are still making music videos. So that is still an avenue. Plus there's the live shows. There's, the TV performances. There's so many different aspects for dance.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I think besides being entertainment, it's a form of art. And so many people don't realize what artistic skills it takes. I mean, there's musicality involved, there's strength training, there is discipline. There are so many levels. And I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's just like people don't really get it.
No, it's interesting how often people think they understand something without actually doing it. And that happens a lot in life. And then there's certain things like sometimes art forms where people are like, oh, you're a painter? I could paint.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you're a writer? I can write. I'm writing a novel. Yeah,
exactly.
Trust me.
Exactly.
Well, here's a prime example. My two stepdaughters, when they were, I think 5 and 7, the Olympics had been on, the ice skaters, and they're like, we want to ice skate. I'm like, okay. And they're in the backyard and they're fantasizing about ice skating, and they have this in their head. So their grandma's like, all right, I'm going to pay for ice skating lessons for them. I'm like, okay, I'll take them.
Are they ice skating now?
Well, no, but
Well,
but okay, so we take them to the ice skating rink. They were so confident, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna do this. One will not let go of the wall,
yeah.
Mhm.
and the other one, she's out there, she doesn't care, but she's falling down, and she ends up failing the first class or the first thing. But it was interesting because they're like, it was so easy outside. It looks so easy on TV. I'm like,
Yeah.
There you go. You just said the thing I was going to contribute to this conversation, which is professionals, when they're good at their craft, make it look
easy.
easy.
Yeah.
And by making it look easy, it makes other people think, oh, well,
I
that
can
looks
do
easy.
that.
I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of time and effort and skill and years and hours and money to make it look easy.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of goes with along the lines of either a podcast or being a writer. Oh, I can write a book. Sure, you can write a book. Are you going to edit it? Are you going to do the cover art? Are you going to do the marketing? Because same thing with the podcast. Are you going to do any of these things? While it's easy to do these things, it's still a lot of work.
Oh, there's so
Logistics.
much.
It's logistics. I say that when anybody starts saying, oh, we're going to do this thing and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, how? Tell me how you're going to do it. Who's going to put, do you know how many hours it takes to do that? Do you have the skills it takes to edit whatever video you present that you think that you're putting out into society? Logistics. You have to think about the whole thing. And people don't always think about the whole thing before they speak. That's how they get themselves in trouble sometimes.
Well, it's our society's instant gratification need.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
we think of the people as an overnight success when
right,
they're really not.
No,
No.
and that's the other thing. When overnight success looks like overnight success, but it takes
People
10
don't see
years
the other
or
stuff.
20 years or 30 years for it to look like overnight success.
Mhm.
Unless you buy a Chewbacca mask and you go viral,
Yeah.
you know.
Sure.
But then here's the thing. Where is she now?
Right. And then what does that do for you? Does it make your life better? Does it make your life challenging? Does it make it hard to get a job now because when people see you, that's all they think about or see is that viral video? Did the video that made you viral make it hard for other people to take you seriously now? Or did they take you so seriously that you can't be part of other things? And honestly,
Or
perception
pigeonhole you.
is infinite. So you never know what's going to happen.
Well, and that's why success is kind of a double-edged sword.
Mhm.
Because if you go viral, you know, I've heard from people that, oh, my video went, you know, it went viral in aisle this, and then my next video tanked.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, you can't play the up and down game. You know, post a video. If it goes well, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. You just have to go, okay.
Do your life,
Yeah.
and whatever happens, happens.
Do you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you be you. All right, I'm going back to the Riviera for a second.
Okay.
So, what's it like on the French Riviera?
Are you kidding me? It's beautiful. The water, I was on the Mediterranean, so the water was gorgeous. I performed at the Monte Carlo Sporting Club.
Mhm.
Same stage that Sinatra's performed on, Prince has performed on, everybody. We were in a building that these thick glass windows, arch windows, would fall into the floor and the ceiling would open up. And that's where we performed.
Nice.
So we were performing underneath the night sky in Monaco, looking out onto the water. It was absolutely beautiful.
Nice.
Let's see. What else would you like to know about the French Riviera?
Well, I do know that there usually is topless bathing. I do know that.
yeah,
and there's a lot of
absolutely.
celebrity sightings and things are a lot
absolutely.
different here.
Yeah, well, I met a ton of celebrities and worked with a ton of celebrities and hung out with a ton of celebrities that year. It was funny. Do you remember What Is Love?
Yes.
Baby, no, yeah.
Hadaway, yes.
Yeah, Hadaway. We kept running into Hadaway at every party we went to. So
Wow.
it became a running gag. And we go, hey, Hadaway, let's go have a drink with Hadaway again. So that was a
Nice.
lot of fun.
Nice.
We were at a private Shaka Khan concert. I mean,
Nice.
I opened up for Stevie, but I also got to hang out with him in private, which was amazing.
But and
David
here's the
Dinkins, Neil Simon,
Played softball. with
played
them, right?
softball with them.
and
Tony
this,
Randall, Jack Klugman. It was fantastic.
and this is what I got to say. And I've talked about this before the podcast. They were pretty damn normal, weren't they?
What is your definition of normal?
Well, what I'm getting at is they're not somebody that is so high on themselves in most cases. They're pretty normal.
You get a mixed bag.
Okay. Well, yes, some of them are going to be high on themselves, but in general, they're normal people.
Well, sure, but normal people could be high on themselves too, right? So, yes, if you want to say they're just normal everyday people too, who happen to have this quality about them that's introduced them to society in a different way that an undiscovered or not a famous person is, then yes, absolutely. Normal people, they eat food, they have a drink, they like to talk to others, and they do their job. It's just that their job is a lot more fun than some other people's jobs.
Well, that's my contention about celebrity. It's kind of like, the people that have really hit it, the ones that are humble and not so high on themselves, they're just normal. They're going to treat you with the same respect as long as you're not getting in their face screaming and you're not going, "Hey, that was a great show."
Yeah.
Right, exactly. That happened to me with Tim Robbins. I was in the airport in, I think, New Orleans, and Tim Robbins walked in. He was just standing there. Sorry, I didn't mean to say I'm umming because I got
okay. Don't worry about
distracted. I'm thinking about 16 at the same time.
Don't worry about it.
He walked in and he was standing there, and I just walked up to him and stood next to him and said, "I don't want to bring any attention to you, but I know who you are, and I appreciate your work. And if you don't mind, I'd just like to," and I wasn't even staring at him. We were standing both looking at something, and I just talked to him. He was there, and I was speaking this way. I said, "I would just love to, shake your hand and thank you for inspiring me." And he was like, "Sure." So I turned and said, "Hi, Mr. Robbins, nice to meet you. Anthony Lo Cascio." Shook his hand. I said, "Have a really great day." And he said, "You too." And that was it.
Yeah.
If you don't bring massive attention to these people, then they are normal everyday people. But if you bring massive attention and make a big deal about it, it makes them uncomfortable. Now they have to take photos. What if they're in a rush? They don't want to seem like they're rude because they say no. So it's like you just have to take the temperature of the situation and be respectful of others, no matter what their place is in society.
Yeah, I had a gentleman I interviewed recently. He worked in a studio, and Jill Scott came in. He was cleaning up the studio, and he was listening to, I think, Boys to Men, and his manager came in, or somebody else that was working with him, and he's like, talk to her about some beats, talk to her about some music. And he was just like, he didn't want to.
That's not what this is for.
And as soon as he did that, as soon as he changed the Boys to Men, because she was vibing off of that, as soon as he changed it, she's like, "I gotta go."
Exactly. That happened to us with Tony Danza recently. I'm sitting next to Tony Danza at an event, and him and I start talking. We start bonding because we're both from a similar area in Queens. And we're having this great conversation, and this woman comes over who's a producer, no less, and I would think would know better. She's like, "I'm sorry to interrupt your conversation. Mr. Danzy, my daughter wants a photo with you. Will you take a photo?" And he was obviously, that wasn't what the vibe was. Yeah. And she totally killed the vibe, and he was like, "Anthony, it was nice to meet you. I gotta go." And I was like, ugh. If this woman didn't come over and totally kill the chill vibe we had going on, I would have hung out with Tony Danza for another 15, 20 minutes, had a drink with him, blah, 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 blah. But like I said, you got to take the temperature of the situation you're in life.
And that's all I was getting at. It's like, while some people are, some people have security around them and they are full of themselves, but in general, they're just really cool. They're normal people with really cool jobs, and well, maybe a little bit more scratch than you and I have. But there you go.
Well, depends on what they do with it, but yes.
This is true. This is true. So is there anything, because I know Anthony has to get ready to go to work. So
yes, I have to go teach.
Otherwise, I would sit here and talk for a while. But is there anything you guys would like to add?
I mean, if anybody out there is dealing with a doctor suggesting to them to change their food, we're here and we can help you. Other people can help you. Nutritionists can help you. Some of the things that come up when we talk to people is you should always be an advocate for yourself. If you're having health issues and you have a doctor that's just throwing prescriptions at you and you feel like you are experiencing more of the side effects than the benefits of what that prescription is meant to do, get a second opinion. If you're not bonding with your doctor and you feel like they're talking at you and rather to you or with you, we recommend trying to seek out a functional medicine doctor. And if you do want some delicious recipes, you can go to our website, which is foodisaprescription.com, and you can put your email in and you could get a free food diary to help keep track of your foods and what foods may be affecting you negatively or not, and get some recipes so that you have delicious things to eat, because it's important that things are delicious. Otherwise, no bueno.
No. And then you're not gonna like it. You're gonna fail before you even start.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
So, Well, I thank you guys for your time.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us and providing a platform for people to discover these things about life so that they could be enlightened and empower themselves.
Well, you're most welcome. So the conversation with Anthony and Staci, I think, is an important conversation. I think that we, as a society, don't necessarily look at nutrition how we should. We look at it in one way, the cookie cutter way. And how many fad diets? I mean, I'm 54. We've talked about this on the podcast. How many fad diets have I seen? You know, from sugar busters to, well, you know, the big diet plans, which I'm not going to sit here and name, but all those things kind of have an effect on us. And we need to reel that back in. We need to try to figure out a way to, you know, look at that and say, okay, what can I do to make me healthier? If you can get to a place where you can get some of the inflammation markers down, then maybe the arthritis isn't there. Maybe the arthritis isn't so bad. You know, maybe there's certain things that you're never going to be able to get rid of, especially after it's been there. But if you can minimize the problems and help reel it in, then that's worth it. I mean, even Anthony had said that he was able to reduce some of the internal bleeding, not all of it, but some of it. So I think we need to look at our nutrition to try to get healthy. Now, by all means, stay with your doctor, take your medication. I'm not saying that's all hooey or whatever. That is a mandatory thing. That isn't not what I'm saying. I'm saying stay with your medication, stay with your doctor. Those are all important things. But as a second component, look at what you're putting in your body. That is another factor. It's a very key factor. But that aside, now that I've preached, let's talk about some of the other things. I mean, you know, dancing, that's always a fascinating thing. And the fact that he got to work with all these people. And I mean, imagine being in Monaco underneath the moon, dancing, doing your best at what you love to do. Imagine how wonderful that must have been. So I think, you know, this episode was fun. It was a blast. And I'm glad I had the opportunity to interview Anthony and Staci. I'm hoping to have them back when they get their cookbook out. And I hope their bakery goes well, because if it is as tasty as he's talking, it should be a wonderful success. So if you really like the show, you can find it at better2podcast.com. Please tell your friends. You can leave a review on Podchaser, on Apple. You can leave a comment on YouTube. All our social links, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, they are all on the better2podcast.com site. And we have a Patreon account, so which I'm thinking about possibly doing a couple of live shows and putting them on there. But that's a little bit in the future. And if you want to be a guest on the show, or if you have a question for one of my guests and you're not sure how to reach out to them, you can always email me at Donna@better2podcast.com. That's DAUNA at better2podcast.com. As always, I enjoyed the show. I enjoyed doing this, and I hope you guys do as well. And I thank you for your time, and I'll catch you next time. Bye, guys. You are listening to the Better 2 podcast with M.Needom.